Moon Knight Episode 4. This video might be a little bit different. I'm trying to power through this. I'm literally just fighting off a cold right now. So I'm thinking there's going to be a little more stagnated breaks throughout the episode where I catch my breath or something. We'll see what happens. I still got to talk about the show. Because it's the show. It's my bread and butter on this channel. It's Moon Knight. I got to talk about it. Even while I am not in the best of shape, we got to talk about Moon Knight because there's going to be a lot of opinions about this episode. And I have a feeling mine are going to be controversial as compared to most. So when the episode dropped online, I went to Twitter immediately after and I was like, okay, I know what this show is now. This show is simple, it's predictable, it's just trying to show this chaotic feeling but keeping it so organized that a general audience can understand it. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not something I like. Now, I've liked a lot of stuff in every episode. I really did. There's good stuff in each episode that I enjoy, but now that I'm seeing pretty much the series whole and where it's headed narratively, I don't think it's the best it could have been. This episode in particular, I knew was coming a mile away. And that's fine. Look, a general audience has no idea who the fuck this character is. And that's fine. You don't have to know anything about this character to understand what's being said in this story. You don't. And that's okay. But I don't like this idea that it's being touted as like this, oh, look at this big revelation. It changes everything in the character. It doesn't. It doesn't change even the narrative we're seeing. It's just the next step. I think there's a simplicity to it that people are taking as this big revelation or this big change. It's not that. It's just the next part of the story. So this episode's kind of in like 3 arcs. The first arc is Layla kind of taking center stage. And I've said this before. You needed to do this with the Marlene character, and she's not Marlene. We see that her father was an archaeologist. He gets killed by mercenaries on a dig site. Mark is connected to that, setting up the Bushman stuff. So this character exists, and she is like part of the lore of the Moon Knight love interest that doesn't have anything going on. I'm a Marlene defender. I do like that character, and I think she represents a certain place in superhero comic books that we've evolved past, but that character also has evolved with it. You needed to do this with that character. And Layla El Fole is just way cooler than Marlene in every scene she's in. May Calamawy is literally my favorite character and my favorite actor in this program because she feels like the classic MCU tropey character, but it actually feels like they're giving some depth to her. It's already an established world she's a part of. She's coming into things in a different light. She has a light. She still loves Mark. Clearly, she still loves Mark and Steven in a way. And there's something very fascinating about that. She made this episode special. Because this character, we've seen this character a million times. It could be boring and tropey. She's doing something that makes it a little more interesting, which I do like to see. It's not perfect in every outing. I do like it, though. She's doing fantastic. So she kind of like drags Mark's body away, and then she fights off some people, and they find the tomb later. It's just we're going to go spelunking now, and I don't care. I think that's fine. Like I said, this is the genre that you're doing. You're doing the globe-trotting adventure, your action adventure, the Mummy, the Raiders thing. If you're doing that, do it. Don't shy away from it. Do that. Is that my favorite aspect of the character? Not really. That's never the part of Moon Knight I've been fascinated by. Because I think in like relative terms, the story of that character is kind of like moved away from that identity. So I don't really care that it's happening here. It's like, okay, fine. I get it. You can do that. It's okay. So they're going to the tombs. They find out where Arthur Harrow and his men are. And then it's just like, we're going to go spelunking. We're going to find some clues. And that's fine. It's just like, okay, cool, I guess. The stuff I do like is May Calamawy's character clearly liking Steven a little bit more than Mark. And Steven's a little bit goofy. He's trying to figure out how to talk to her. They have a couple moments where, like, when they almost kiss, where Layla's initiating that. And it's like, that's awesome. I do like that chemistry. Then Steven puts his hands on her shoulders and drags her in for a kiss, and she likes it. I like that a lot. And then they dive down into the tombs, and he's like, wow, that's so beautiful. And she thinks she's talking about him. And I'm like, that's awesome. That was cool. Like, that's a good moment where it's like, oh, that character clearly wants love, and she likes the men that are inside this body. That's cool. I like that. As they're just kind of spelunking around, they find all these tombs. They're attacked by this weird mummy thing. Like, I get this. I understand why you have to do this. To me, it is a creepy character. It's going to be one of those things where I think everybody watching it's going to be like, oh man, the MCU is doing horror now. It's no more scary than any other jump scene the MCU's done. So Layla's running around these tombs. This weird, like, little guy is following her around with, like, a weird, like, sword or something. And he's ripping the innards out of people. Is it bloody and scary? Yeah, it is. Is it intense and gripping? Sure, it's fine. But if you've seen anything in the genre, that's it. So it's not, like, new. It's not, like, breathtaking. I'm like, yeah, I've seen movies that do this before. This isn't something new to the genre that you're doing. People are just saying, like, it's bold and brilliant to the MCU because the MCU doesn't really do stuff like this. And that's okay. It doesn't need to. But the thing that I just think is, like, blowing my mind is the way people are, like, holding this episode up as, like, game-changing. I'm like, really? Game-changing? Girl climbing on some rocks getting chased by a guy gets dragged into the tombs? Like, that's literally every little action adventure like this. You know, how many times has, like, a Brendan Fraser character been dragged through a wall like that? It's cool. It's fascinating. But it's not groundbreaking. It's not new or, you know, death-defying. It's just a thing. And as Layla's doing her own adventure, we see that Arthur finds her and tells her, like, this history of what happened, how Mark's related to her father's death. I understand that you're not showing us and you're more just telling us what happened there. You could easily show us that. I don't think that'd be too much of a stretch, and maybe we will see it. Maybe we'll get there eventually. But the way the back half of this season's going, it's like, ooh, that's a big if and maybe. I don't know if they'll actually do it. And that's something, this is a thing I do like about kind of like the retconning of their origin, is that Marlene just instantly was like, okay, Mark, you're alive. Here, save me, love me, be my boyfriend. Layla's like, I wasn't there and you've only came to follow me and marry me and love me because you were upset what you did to my dad. That's a way better story because, yeah, it's weird that Marlene would be like, my dad died and now I'm going to go hook up with this weird boy. This feels realistic. They came to know each other through the events that led to her father's death. Like, that is a way better story. And that makes way more sense than what we've seen in the 80s. So I like that. I don't hate that at all. That's a cool idea. I think it works fine. That stuff is good. Now, we've seen throughout the first 3 episodes the way that Steven and Mark are interacting. And this is going to be, I think, I get it. It's a visual representation of how they're going to communicate with each other. This episode, I got tired of it. They're just yelling at each other, and Mark's just letting Steven be in control, and he hates that Steven's in control, and he's like, you kissed my wife? It's like, well, she obviously likes me more, mate. And like, okay. This is, okay, how do I say this? I get why you did this to the character. I do. This is the only way to really make Moon Knight work for a general audience. Because the Moon Knight I know, and the Moon Knight I've been reading for years, is a hard sell. And that's why I like it. I've always said this about the character. When you can put him in any situation, any theme, that's when it works best. And this is fine. Like, this is a serviceable story for a character I love. It's an okay representation. But this is an easy way for a general audience to be like, oh, look at that. That's kind of cool. That's different than what we've seen before. So I get it. It's just cringy at times. And I'm just like, you are taking this character who is actually steeped in something and making it everything you do with the MCU. And that is just a palatable version of a character. And I get it. Comic books will always be better than the movies or the television shows. That is the case, no matter what. Unless it's like a very specific thing, like The Boys, you are always going to find a comic book being better than the actual live action representation. But this just feels very clean. I don't mean clean like the character is dark, edgy, and gritty. I just mean clean like, okay, you are sanitizing this character into becoming your formulaic hero that you've seen in these movies before. And I will stand by that. Anybody can challenge me on the idea that this is breaking mold for the MCU. It's not. It is doing the thing we've seen a million times in the MCU. So don't, get your britches in a bunch. It's just so formulaic that's fine. Okay? It's fine. It's okay. So they fight the weird thing. Steven gets separated from Layla. He goes on his own little grand adventure where Mark's yelling at him like, why'd you kiss my wife? He finds the tomb of Alexander the Great, and this is where he has to find the Ammit statue, and he reaches into this mummy's stomach and pulls it out, And suddenly all of our heroes come back together. And I said this last week, when Oscar Isaac switches between the personalities, people are going to tweet that as like, oh, this is so good. Look at this actor acting. And I'm like, yeah, it's good. It's not that impressive. Like, it's just going like, blah, 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 you know, just like, you know, just switching emotions pretty easily. Any actor could do it. Any actor, that's fucking acting. Any actor can really do what he's doing. He's doing it in a great way. And I think later on in the episode, we see what makes him special at this, because he's doing stuff that not every actor could do then. So then we get the big fight. I say big fight. We actually see Mark kill people for once. They actually, you know, damage people, which I'm like, good, do that. Don't have some bullets ricochet off your cape. Actually kill some mother effers. Like, that's what you should do. That's what they do here. And that works well. And we see that Arthur Harrow just shoots him. He takes the Amut thing. I'm like, good. That's a great idea. That's a fun storyline that I'm okay with. I can get behind that a lot. I like it. Those were the first two arcs of this episode. We're crawling through the catacombs of this ancient tomb of Amut. We're finding Alexander the Great. We're finding the amulet. We're finding everything we need to make this story go further. We're learning truths about Mark and Layla. We're learning everything we need to. The Moon Knight costume does not appear in this episode. That's fine. Whatever. The personalities are okay. Like, I get that. You're doing your classic Raiders, your Mummy, your Uncharted. You're doing all those classic things. I'm fine with that. You got brilliant and sexy actors like May in here and Oscar in here. I'm fine with that. It's completely serviceable, troped up to hell, being dragged through the walls. I'm fine. It's okay. It looks cool. I can get behind it. Then he gets shot by Arthur Harrow, falls into some water, and suddenly we cut to a great... I love this transition. WandaVision did it better, but this is a great transition where it cuts to like a fake movie called Temple Buster? Is it Temple Busters? Starring Dr. Stephen Grant, and we do the Lemaire run. And this is where I think people are going to go, this is brilliant, it's so unique and crazy. I'm like, really? This is literally the most celebrated run of the character. If they didn't do this now, it was coming. Like, the fact that they did this is not a shock to me. We have seen the promotional materials indicating this was happening. I don't understand why people are like, this is so unique and new. I'm like, it's not. This was expected. One half of the character is the Egyptian mythology. The other half is dealing with this real-life mental illness that this man has. It's not that shocking. And I understand, like, to a general audience who doesn't know anything about this character, it could be. It has to, like, celebrate this fine line between, oh, is this real or is this fake? Because we had 3 episodes prior where we saw what we think is the real world. So it's either like, oh, this is an illusion that is being put upon him, or the audience has to believe all of those were fake. The problem is, we know this is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're not going to focus on a character who is in a mental institution, so we know it's not real. And that's the problem. And look, when the Lemaire run did it, it just started that way. It wasn't like a story leading to there. It was like, we open up here. Has every adventure of this character previously been that? We know it's fake, so it kind of loses its tension there, but it's not about the tension. It's more like, can this be celebrated into something cool? We see all the characters we've met in every previous episode. Crawley actually talks. He's hosting the bingo game. That's cool. Donna from the museum's there. Billy and Bobby are there as everything. We even see Layla's there, and she's like helping him out, giving him like weird marshmallows or something. It's kind of cool. It looks great. Again, May Kalamaui is such a talented actress. I'm just really adoring what she's doing here. She is my favorite part of the show. And I just loved her just like little smiles towards me. There's like, hey, we can win this together. We got to win a bingo card. Yes, let's go. That stuff was really cool. And it made for something very special. And you see him holding a Moon Knight action figure. Now, if you look behind me, I do have a bunch of Moon Knight action figures, so I'm looking at this one like, which one is this? It looks like an amalgamation of parts. Like, it's clearly like 6-inch scale Marvel Legend thing, but I know with the way the articulation looked on the figure, that who cares about this? I'm just going to say it anyways. The articulation on the figure does not match anything currently made by Hasbro. The colors are too gray for that, and the head sculpt looks like the one from the Diamond Select Moon Knight figure. I couldn't tell if it was like more cloth goody or anything. It looks like an amalgamation of parts, kind of Hasbro-y, Diamond Select-y. I think it's its own individual piece made for the film. They should have just used the one they made. You know, they should have just, like, used the new one they made for the movie, like, that Marvel Legends is making for this series. They should have just used that one, or they should have just used one that previously existed, not just combine a bunch of parts. Either way, that's fun. And that's the thing we've seen before, where it's like all in his head. That's a cool idea. I respect the hell out of that. I respect it went that route. That's cool. It's not a mindfuck to me. I don't think it's like brilliant or death defying or doing these new creative ideas. Yeah, that's the most celebrated story. And we literally just saw the Thor Love and Thunder trailer literally homage a classic panel from Thor God of Thunder. So of course they're going to go here. He goes to talk to Arthur Harrow, who is like the psychiatrist in this asylum. And he's like looking around at all this stuff. That's stuff he's been a part of. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of fun. And it leads him to break out. He's running down the halls. He finds this, I guess, sarcophagus. Is that what they're called? Pulls out Steven. So him and Steven are together now. And they're like running around. There's a third sarcophagus, or a second one, I guess. Again, I've said this since episode 2. They're going to tease Jake Lockley at the end. That third sarcophagus is like, yep, there it is. He's there. We're not letting him out. Maybe because Oscar Isaac had to grow a mustache for that part, and we don't want to show that yet, and maybe that's like all reshoot stuff, but who knows? Who could say? It's fine. They're running down the halls. Somebody's breaking through. Like, oh, who's breaking through the walls? Who's coming after our guys? As they're in this mental institution, they find each other. The two personalities are separate. They play off each other really well. That's really fun to see. And suddenly, who bursts through the wall with this big hippo lady who's waving at them? And it's an Egyptian god. What the hell's her name? I can't remember. They both scream in an iconic scream. And it cuts to black. And I'm like, oh, cool. That's okay. Okay. Like, it's good. And I think maybe because I've read the Lemire run more than any other run on Moon Knight. Like that to me is the end of the character. It's like that and Vengeance of the Moon Knight are like my two favorite runs in the character. So it's like, I get it. That's the end. You know, you solve your problems, you break out, you realize if it's real or not, it doesn't matter. You find out who you are in the end. So seeing it in this capacity, I don't have a real opinion on it. I'm just like, yeah, I get why you do this. Is it clever? Sure. Is it going to shock audiences? Yeah, because audiences are stupid. They're going to think this is like, whoa, look what we're looking at here. This is so insane. Mark and Steven are together. One's in black, one's in white. Blah, 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 blah. Like, yeah, okay. But that's every run. Pretty much every run, we see them talking to each other either in a mindscape or something else. Like, okay, I get why you're doing this. You have to saturate it for general audiences. I am fine with that. But I think what really upset me was everybody who got the previews for every episode. And you know, I know people who got the first 4 episodes and everyone's celebrating like, episode 4 is changing the game. Like, no, it's not. This is the game. This was always a part of the character. This isn't changing anything. It is just showing you what everybody who has read this character already knows about them and is doing it on screen. And that's going to get some people excited. But for me, I'm like, yeah, let's take a step back and remember this is a troped up show. You know, WandaVision itself was a troped up show. That's my favorite piece of MCU anything. WandaVision was a troped up show that was celebrating the life of television characters and storylines. And even that did something original with it. The problem I'm seeing with Moon Knight is it is troped up with like your Raiders storyline. It's not doing anything new in the world that it's a part of. And that is the biggest detriment of the show. I love the chemistry between May and Oscar. I love the way they're kind of flirting with each other. She likes Steven a little bit more than Mark. I like the way we reveal that Layla's a better version of Marlene. I like the fight scene with Mark and everybody in the middle there. I like the way all that's going. And when we come see the big hippo lady, it's funny and cool. I don't think this show is as great as people are toting it out to be. It is solid. It's better than a lot of stuff in the MCU because we're actually letting actors act as opposed to being quippy. They are quippy, but the quippy comes from a place of insecurity. So I can get behind that. You know, Mark Spector's not making jokes. Steve is. And that's fine. Steve can make the jokes if Mark's going to be serious. But if they were all just like, hey, yikes, gross, as if or something, like, no. That's dumb. So as much as I think this show is hitting certain marks right, it is not hitting the same marks right. It is not a super intense piece of fiction that's like changing the game for the MCU or horror shows in the MCU. It is just solid. It's just it's like this. Everything in the MCU is so saturated in its own way that when somebody slightly changes the mold a little bit, suddenly it looks like it's changing it drastically. But I'm like, no, How many jump scares has there been in the MCU? Not a lot, but the ones where May gets ripped back through the walls there, it's cool, but we've seen it before. Don't go celebrate. I mean, if you want to celebrate it, fine. Celebrate it. It's a good show. It can make you happy. But this episode really made me go, I now understand why this isn't for me. It is doing the thing that the MCU does and making this character something easy, and that's fine. But just the way it's going about it, I think, is so stale. And maybe stale is the wrong word. It's just so predictable and simple. It's really just, here you go. Here's everything. Here's the most celebrated run. Just enjoy this or not. And that is annoying. That can suck sometimes. And I'm trying to be positive, but unless it picks itself up and we do something very creative for the end, it's not my favorite show, which really sucks. And I think it will get better. But I don't know. We'll save all those like ramification ideas for later on in the show, or when we do a big special like what's next. That's going to do it for episode 4 of Moon Knight. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.
Foul demon, face the vengeance of the Moon Knight.